I thought that I could keep you safe, and I can't.
I'm with the federal branch of the BWI, the Bureau of
Witchcraft Investigations. I'm familiar.
I've been dispatched to follow up on reports of suspicious activity. May I come in?
Detective, I assure you, there are no witches here.
We need to stop. We can't be risking our lives for them.
These women are born with their powers. They don't have a choice.
Have you ever made anything fly?
How am I supposed to control something that I'm not even allowed to practice? Not bad.
I thought that I could keep you safe, and I can't.
Keep quiet. There's nothing in that thing that shouldn't be there, is there?
No.
I hate liars.
Has it really come to this?
You want to try?
I thought that I could keep you safe, and I can't.
I'm with the federal branch of the BWI, the Bureau of
Witchcraft Investigations. I'm familiar.
I've been dispatched to follow up on reports of suspicious activity. May I come in?
Detective, I assure you, there are no witches here.
We need to stop. We can't be risking our lives for them.
These women are born with their powers. They don't have a choice.
Have you ever made anything fly?
How am I supposed to control something that I'm not even allowed to practice? Why does it have to be bad? I'm not bad.
I thought that I could keep you safe, and I can't.
Keep quiet. There's nothing in that thing that shouldn't be there, is there?
No.
I hate liars.
Has it really come to this?
You want to try?
I thought that I could keep you safe, and I can't.
I'm with the federal branch of the BWI, the Bureau of
Witchcraft investigations. I'm familiar.
I've been dispatched to follow up on reports.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Dissecting Horror. I am tonight's host, Mary Beth McAndrews from Dread Central. I'm our content manager, and I am super stoked to be here today with the creatives behind the new film, Witch Hunt. So before I introduce everybody, I just want to read a real quick synopsis of Witch Hunt for our viewers out there. In a modern America where magic is real and witches are persecuted by U.S. authorities, teenager Claire and her family are part of an intricate network that helps these women escape across the border to seek asylum in Mexico. However, when their mode of transport is disrupted by federal witch hunters, trouble befalls the family as they struggle to hide two young witches within the walls of their home. As witch hunters close in and strange magic begins haunting the family, Claire discovers that she may have more in common with these witches than she could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
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 So I'm super excited to be joined here today with director and writer of Witch Hunt, Elle Callahan. Hello.
Hello.
Elizabeth Mitchell, who is in the film as Martha Good and is also an executive producer on the film. We have Holly Trotta, who is the production designer of the film. And then we have Joanna David, who is the costume designer from the film. Oh, so excited to be here, everybody. Congratulations on the movie, first and foremost.
Thank you.
Okay. I know it's been a while since you've been waiting for it to come out. So how does it feel, Elle, to have it finally out to the world?
It feels great. It's been like ruminating in my brain now for like 5 years. And to finally be able to share it with everyone just feels like I can finally kind of breathe. Yeah.
So you just said you've been thinking about this film for 5 years. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your process for creating this film, because it's such a powerful film. It's got such an incredible allegory and is very, very relevant to our current political climate. So just would love to hear a little bit more from you about developing the story and where it came from for you.
Well, I've always wanted to make a film about witches, mostly just because, growing up, the most powerful women that I would see in movies and TV and read about were always witches. So I started doing a lot of research into the actual history of witchcraft. I think for Christmas, I asked for my parents, were like, oh, what do you want? And I was like, I'd love this history book on witchcraft. And they're Roman Catholic, and they were like, okay.
Oh, no.
Why?
Oh boy.
I was like, it's for research, for a script, I swear. And the more I read, the more I realized that kind of the history of witches is more than just a little blip that we think of in America as Salem. It wasn't a frenzy. It was built into people's normal everyday life 300 to 500 years ago in Europe, especially. And it was totally normal to accuse your neighbor of being a witch and then hiring a witch hunter to come and figure out if they actually were. That was a real job to be a witch hunter. And it was as normal as doing your taxes. It wasn't seen as fantastical, it was seen as logic and truth. And that kind of blew me away. Because I've always thought of it as just this random couple years in American history where everyone went pretty nuts and then it kind of resolved itself. But no, it was really built into everyone's culture. So I thought, okay, if I take that and I just plop it into modern day, how would, at the time, 2018 America react to that? If magic was real, what kind of laws would we do to adjust to a power that only women could have, only certain women? And I didn't really set out when I was writing it to make a big commentary on our political system or anything, but I think it all kind of just seeped into my brain when I was writing it, because you write what you know and you write what you feel. And so when I was building the world, I thought of, witches in America. And then the story kind of came out as a reflection of my frustration with everything that was going on in the country at the time. It's only, I think, become more relevant, unfortunately. But yeah, so it kind of, that's how the story came about. And I'm a big fan of shows like True Blood and District 9 were kind of two big inspirations for this, where they took a fantastical element and they set it in our world, and I think made it seem really realistic in the way that the world reacted to this unrealistic kind of power or alien or vampires. So this was my attempt to do that with witches.
Well, it's a very good way of interpreting witches in the modern day. We have a comment from Twitch from Andrea from Grimoire, which is exciting. She hasn't seen the film yet, but she loves the modernized depiction of the drowning test. And I think like a motif in a lot of this film, is that modernized version of the witch testing. There's like the mole pricks, there's the drowning test, which is horrifying because that was an actual test, but I also really enjoyed the kind of the little hints to the witch trials as well, where like Good and Hawthorne. What did you mean for those to be like little subtle kind of hints back to the history of the Salem witch trials?
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah, definitely. I like to hide that kind of stuff in the bigger like world of the film, and it's just fun for the audience to be like, wait, that actually connects to there, and it just makes it like deeper. And I'm a big world builder.
So yes, I was going to ask about that. You're an incredible world builder, because this movie has so much lore behind it. Like there's Prop 6 about witchcraft. There's the Bureau of Witchcraft Investigation. Like this is such a fully kind of realized world. And I wanted to hear more from you, Elle, about building that world and like where these details came from. And was there stuff that you were adding on while filming, or was it all kind of actualized in your mind before you started filming?
Well, I basically made this big world lore document, which was like 20 pages long, which was in this world, like the entire history of witchcraft and like when like other laws, a lot of stuff that you don't actually see in the film, but there might be hints to, because I think it's easier to create a smaller world within a bigger one that's already been fleshed out. And our story is very contained. It's like a very small story in a big world. So and I sent that to like all of our production heads and actors so that they could better like understand the world that their characters were living in. So I did basically make up an entire kind of like fake magical history for America for like the past 200 years, and like why there are all these laws, and more into Prop 6 and the witch hunters, and more into all the sync tests and notorious women that have been put away, just in case it sparked anything with anyone else working on the film, if they wanted to like dive into that with their character, things like that. So yeah, I'd like to flesh out my worlds before, but it's not to say that I want to lock people into that way of thinking too. It's more of like a jumping off point.
Cool. And so I wanted to ask everybody else all about like, what was it like for you to kind of jump into this extensive world? And so Elizabeth, I'd love to start with you about what was it like kind of diving into the world that Elle had created with Witch Hunt?
Gosh, jumping into a fully created world that you get to play in is one of the greatest gifts for an actor. The minute I talked to Elle on the phone before we did it, I had a feeling that's how it would be. But the minute I arrived on set and I was like, oh my gosh, it's just everything she talked about, every little detail, every color choice, every emotional choice, every little bit of interaction between characters had a whole history and a feeling behind it. And it made it a really rich experience. And it also made it for me as an actor, just fun. I got to go in there and play because I was given so many tools to play with, and we like toys as actors. Like we're like, oh, good, oh, new shiny history. I'll take that, and this character is so nice and fully fleshed out, and I'll take a piece of that, and oh, I think I liked that person. Like Martha thought this was fantastic, so I'll take that, and all of that is work that I sometimes will do myself to build a character. And in this case, I came in and it was just laid out for me. It was such a gift. So I loved it. I love walking into other people's fully fleshed out worlds because I love to read. I love fiction. I love that idea of going into this amazing world. It's one of those little childhood dreams things. So that's how I felt about it.
Awesome. Holly, what about you from a production designer standpoint and coming into this world that Elle had built?
It was great. I love, Elle and I had talked even before pre-production about the look and feel and initial conversations about what she wanted the color palette to be, and colors we should avoid and colors we wanted to speak to specific moments. So it was really great to have clarity. And that's also a launch point for me as well, to be like, okay, gather all the information, digest, and then regurgitate back to initially my research, and then fleshing out to my department to be able to actually execute. So it was nice. And Elle and I were constantly talking, does this feel right? Okay, let's switch to this. Okay, what do you think about this? So it was great to be able to have a lot of that that knowledge already. And it's great from a set standpoint to have all of that history that you may not see on the screen as well, just to be able to build the backstory. And there's a reason behind why we chose some of the furniture, and why we chose these colors for sets, and that was influential in the backstory and had importance. So it's really nice to be able to have that all fleshed out when you actually start to dive into the look and feel.
Cool. And Joanna, what about you?
I think from the get-go, just even meeting with Elle, she already kind of had, her images, her inspo images. It was like a really good marriage of taking everything she studied from history and kind of mixing it with, okay, now we have to think about the now, modernizing everything, not making it the cliche witch that everybody kind of, knows the look of. But between those ideas and even, coming from Elizabeth and Gideon, kind of like what they were feeling with the look of their characters and what this world could be, it was all like a really, really good collaborative effort of taking a story that's so set in history and has such a clear image, like costume or wardrobe wise, and putting our own twist to it, while still making it, have a look and feel of this like fantasy world.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, and both you and Holly, about kind of taking a movie that is about witches but is not witchy, because we all know, like you said, we know what witchy kind of looks like: black, lacy, double toil and trouble, kind of like stereotypical witch. So I wanted to hear just a little bit more about how you kind of, for me, Joanna, like with the wardrobes, conceptualize the idea of witch into the clothing. I just would love to hear more about that, because I think it's such a fascinating kind of topic about how you choose these pieces, like these perfect pieces.
Totally. And I think from the get-go, a lot of our pre-production meetings with Elle, we wanted to attach a color to them, just something that can kind of play as a through line through the whole plot. And once we did, it was really cool to play with silhouettes of like, the long dresses and kind of modernizing, but also looking at Gideon and her high school life and knowing like this isn't something that age group would wear every day and things like that. So it was really fun to know that like we didn't have any rules that we needed to go by. This is a whole like world that we are creating ourselves. So as much as we're telling a story that may be super, have an image attached to it, it's definitely a world that like we didn't want anything else. So we were able to be creative with like what we wanted our witches to wear in this version of that story. Cool. And it was really nice. We kind of almost just wanted everything to be a vibe versus making them look like witches, which made it easier to be like creative and to attach to like Holly's productions and sets, and to, Elizabeth's and Gideon's idea, because we weren't even really thinking from a witch mindset, actually. Yeah. So I think that really helped.
Yeah, and also I think like the one rule that we did was the color blue. Like, yeah, I told Holly and Joanna, I was like, okay, so my one thing is that in this film we're going to use blue as the color of magic. So I want like no blue in the production design at all, unless it's like something that's magical.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
lot harder than I thought to not use on anyone else, but the but jeans are blue. If
Yeah, I
you
know we could
look,
use it.
no one wears jeans besides the witches. It was so hard.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even notice that because blue, obviously there's like a blue motif in certain parts of it, but like I didn't even think about the fact that they were like about wearing jeans.
Yeah, it's like
that's
a
so
subtle,
fascinating.
it's like a subtle thing. And we tried to do with Gideon's character, Claire, too, to have hints of blue on her, like her blue chipped nail polish, and she has like and Martha's engagement ring is a blue sapphire. Like it's like these little things that if you go hunting, you can find kind of like little hints of magic and the blues that make it through.
I love that. Like the design for this movie, you guys really like dug in and really thought through. And like Holly, I would love to hear more from you about digging into all those little details and what it was like placing all these cool details, especially in the house where a lot of this movie takes place, in this beautiful house. And I'd love to hear more about that from you, about designing
But
that,
Holly
that
basically,
house.
you like built that entire house out. Like that was not a real.
Really? Tell me more.
Like actually, I think that's the beauty in this being definitely a bit more stylized. Is that we, the house was just a shell. It was actually a set house, that had false ceilings and fake walls. And so we really got to come in and customize, which is, a production designer's dream, is just to start with nothing. We really get to build out, precisely the look and feel, and don't really have much limitation, which is amazing place to be. So, the color palette inevitably led to it being more stylized, which was super fun, and embracing earth tones and yellows and greens and khakis and browns. And, also Elle didn't, want the house to be, anything in the shape of like a traditional like witch house, so-called, so like I wanted to pepper in little hints through like, taxidermy that you'll just like minorly kind of see, or, candles, or just like hinting without actually beating you over the head with it. So it was super fun to design the house, from the kitchen to the living room to the dining room, and then even going and building out the behind the walls was really fun, to give the illusion that the house was a lot bigger, because there was no actual physically behind the walls of the house. Which was really fun to do, and how we kind of synced it in the editing and working with Elle on, okay, well, visually we have to kind of look like it's wrapping around this way. And so that was really fun to be able to build that out off of the existing architecture and inspiration from the house.
That's incredible. That is,
it is incredible.
Yeah.
It was so cool to be in. It really was. It was extraordinary.
Wow. And I think that's also really important for the actors and everything, and is for them to step on set and feel like they're in this world, to feel like they're in something completely different, to dive into their character. I think that's so important, and something that is definitely important for me, is to make sure that everyone is, once they step on a set, they can get into their character much easier. And
like I was on set and there were parts in the movie that I was like, where did we film this again? Like, which part of this was the house? And so that just goes to show.
Yeah.
From Twitch, Casey58 said, I absolutely loved Witch Hunt. It was the highlight of my week to go see it in theaters. Everyone did such a beautiful job with creating this world, and it's truly lingered with me since I saw it. So I think that's a testament to the world that you all created. And it really is like such a I'm obsessed with lore. So again, I was super excited to see this movie that had so many cool little details in it. But so Elizabeth, I wanted to ask you a question, because you both star in this film, but also you executive produced it. So I want to know what drew you specifically to this project to be so involved with it.
Oh gosh, my first thing was I got the script and I loved it, and then I heard about Gideon and I happened to love her, and then I talked to Elle, and really that was I mean, I had already fallen in love with the characters. So once that happens, it's like falling in love with anything. You can't hear anything else. You're just like, nope, I love them. So, but I talked to Elle and I just instantly was like, yeah, I would like to go do this. Let's just do it now. It'll be great.
I remember that. We were like talking and I was like, okay, but we have dates though that we have to.
But I just felt like I felt instantly drawn into the whole thing, and I also was so excited after talking to Elle because I loved her vision and I loved her her way of thinking about it, and I loved all the details and I loved the excitement of it. There are some times in my job where you get to walk into a book. That's how it felt to me. I got to walk into a book, you know, and I got to be my favorite character. So it was really something. And then I really wanted to be involved because it was a smaller movie, which felt like such a cool thing because look at all the things you can do. Look at the freedom that you can have. Look what happens when you have so many women together, so many strong, creative, amazing women together. And I wanted to be part of that. So luckily they let me.
And I wanted to ask a little bit more about your character, Martha, she's a mother, but not only to her children, but she's a mother figure to these young witches that are taking refuge in her home. And I just wanted to hear more from you about what it was like to dig into this incredibly empathetic character and be something that these people desperately need and be a small part of something so much bigger.
Oh, that's so interesting that you know, in the watching of it, I saw it because I did watch it and sometimes I don't. I think when I was doing it, I felt like we were keeping her removed. But I think the fact that I'm a mom maybe really played into that. And I was feeling protective over everybody. So I think that just kind of snuck in, to be honest with you. You know, I always thought that Martha held herself back because she didn't want to have to be so involved in everyone's lives because once they're gone, that's out of her control, you know. But I think the sympathy and the love for these young kids is because she is a mom and they are young kids, and I think she fights against it. I don't know, Elle, what do you think about that? I feel like we fought hard against it, but I think I lost.
I mean, I think it bled through, but in a good way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. Just like I think of the moments where like a pile of pancakes, like you're feeding these young women. It's like small stuff like that where you're like you're
little
just,
things.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I actually ended up really loving it, but I know that Elle and I had lots of conversations about it. What are your thoughts, Elle? I felt like it was kind of fun. It ended up being really sweet. I quite loved her.
I think she turned out perfect. Martha turned into this very like proactive and comfortingly, but also like in control character that brought this like sense of calm to everyone in a world that was so hectic. And I think in order to do that and to keep that control and keep everyone calm and moving forward to plan, like there needs to be that comfort that she needs to give to people. So that kind of came through in the mothering. But without that, I don't think her character would have worked. So it's perfect.
Well, it's really fun for me. I mean, it's so easy to be comforting and to comfort as a mom in life. So it was great fun for me. It felt very natural to feed people and to be there.
I was gonna say, you guys were talking about how you were the mom on set, so you were feeding everyone treats.
It's the same person. Like every time I'd see her, I'd be like, "Oh, is she like in character?" Or yeah, she was definitely the mama of set.
Oh, I love that. That makes me so happy. It was really such a joy to do. The whole thing was such a sweet, extraordinary moment in time.
Yeah. And where we filmed was so beautiful. It was like just gorgeous.
Where did you guys film? On my phone. Oh, it's gorgeous.
Is it a filming ranch like maybe like 30 to 40 minutes north of Los Angeles?
And you can't believe you're anywhere near it.
Yeah, it's like you feel like you're in Wyoming. Like you drive like down this dirt road for like 15 minutes and then you turn like a corner and it's just open, beautiful pastures, this house that's like up on a hill with like one lone tree. I feel like you're in like the Lion King or something. It's where they filmed a lot of the Westworld. but it was, yeah. And like the first week we were there, it had rained a lot before, and so there are these beautiful yellow flowers everywhere. It was like a dream.
It was like a dream. Walking to and from set, I just felt like it was, you know, and walking to that extraordinary set, right? So then the whole thing was so beautiful.
Yeah, very calming. The sunsets were insane. Like
Amazing.
we'd like,
Oh my God.
because we didn't film a lot at sunset. We'd have to either have to wait for the sun to fully go down for the night scenes. And so I just like watch it go down. It's like, it's so pretty. Like, I feel like we should have written more sunset scenes. We should be filming this.
KC58, again from Twitch, said, I loved every Martha scene, but I think the one with the neighbor was my favorite. She was so quick. That's intense. Like these tense moments like that in this movie that feel all too real. Like these are conversations that have been had, and similar, like, you know, you have those awkward neighbors who come and knock on your door and want to share their political beliefs with you, and you have to kind of figure out how to navigate those conversations. And in this, the stakes are even higher in that situation. It's a life or death situation.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the way that Elle wrote that. I felt that it was so interesting to me that she not only listens to the other person's point of view, but brings in, escalates it, right? Takes it to the next level, and therefore kind of ensures her camouflage, basically. I mean, I'm not sure what you were thinking when you wrote that, Elle, but I really liked it. I really thought that was probably my favorite scene. Besides all the stuff with the kids to play, I really enjoyed that.
That scene is actually like, well, I feel like I say this about every scene, but that scene is one of my favorite scenes when I watch it, because I just think it came together really well. And, you know, like you were saying, we have that, you know, situation a lot in our own lives where we have someone with a different viewpoint that we might think we're not going to be able to change their mind. So we just need to like get through it and get them to leave.
Just get through it. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so much going on there because, you know, Martha is trying to get the neighbor to go away. And also her daughter is listening to what she says. The girls in the wall are listening to what she says too. So it's like, she also needs to not be too firm in what she's saying and hope they get the subtext of, no, I'm just doing this to send her away, and this isn't how I really feel. And also her daughter is sitting there like, okay, well, you're lying again and you're making me live my life as a lie. Like, even though, so there's a lot going on. It's like a scene. I look at that scene as like a scene of like triangles. Like it's just everyone everywhere is.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's how it feels to me. I really loved that on paper, and I absolutely loved playing it. I thought she was terrific. I
that was a fun day.
bought into her, and it was just an interesting thing. Anyway, thank you. I loved it. Thank you for saying so. That's pretty awesome.
And so that kind of, that scene that makes me think of something that is talked a lot about in the horror community. And it's this refrain that echoes a lot, that horror isn't political. And I would say that your film proves that is an inherently false statement in my head with the genre, because your film is incredibly
yeah, I think horror can be incredibly political.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, well, exactly, incredibly political, and like this film is obviously very much an example of that. But so I wanted to just like open it up to the group here, maybe starting with Elle though. Like, why do you think horror is such a perfect genre for talking about political issues, especially something like this where you're tackling like misogyny and like xenophobia and all, like tons of these issues going on right now? So I just like love to hear your perspective about the power of horror in telling these kinds of stories.
Well, I think sometimes those kind of concepts are easily to digest when they are wearing a different skin. And, you know, so maybe you're not outwardly saying, like addressing things politically, but if they exist in that world in a different aspect, it's easier to digest them. You know, like, is this movie really about witches, or is it, you know, about just others, you know, in general? Also, I think a lot of political conversations include things that are pretty scary. So they inherently then lend themselves to scary narratives, you know, like misogyny is scary. Like that's just as terrifying. So I mean, obviously it's going to pop up in horror films. You know, most slasher killers are men. So in the horror films. So what's that saying? I don't know. Yeah, I think it's easier to present bigger concepts if you're able to mask them in a form of entertainment. I mean, personally, like I said before, I try not to set out to say things, but you know what? It just bubbles up. You know, it just happens. And you know, I think with every film that I make, I want to entertain people, but I also want them to come away with maybe new thoughts on certain topics and topics that I find that are important to me.
Cool.
Love that.
Do you guys have anything else to add about horror? I know that, you know, from a production or costume design perspective, it's a little bit different, but I'm just always curious, like working in that horror space and being able to kind of tell stories in that horror space.
I'm not so sure about like the wardrobe aspect of it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, having all those hidden meanings in horror, I feel like horror is the perfect balance between like a rom-com comedy and then like a total sci-fi. So like it's the perfect balance of normal and fantasy world. And everyone already goes into horror films with so much emotion because they're rather scared or anxious and I think that's kind of why it's so easy or dissected in a way where it's like, are they really telling the fantasy part of it, or are they really trying to say like a hidden meaning? Because there's just so much emotion that already happens in horror films. So it's kind of like the mask to like whether or not you want to say something, and no one's really like judging it for that because of all the emotion that's already in it. So yeah, I think that's why it's such a, I mean, I'm sure as Elle said, she kind of didn't go into this with all these like hidden meanings for Witch Hunt, but to each their own, like as far as what they want to take from it. And I think that's the beauty of what horror films can do.
And also with horror films, in order for them to be scary, you have to care about the characters.
Oh yeah.
You have to feel for them with that danger. So in order to care about the characters, you have to empathize with them. And usually that empathy comes from a connection that you have with them, something they're going through. And then that usually somehow loops back to, you know, an experience that they're having that in my case, usually it's like a political experience. So I think maybe making the characters making you as an audience more empathetic to the characters brings the social commentary in too, because if you don't care about the characters, then it's not scary. You're like, they can go down that.
You're like, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready for them to get take them get plucked off by the killer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I have a couple questions from our Facebook chat that I want to read out to y'all. So this one is for Holly, actually. I read that you built the mazes that the witches hid in behind the walls. Can you talk about that? And you talked about the house and a little bit about like the stuff behind the walls, but I want to hear a little bit more about what you constructed to look like it was behind the walls of the house.
Yeah, so we built it in two sections. We built it as an entranceway from the house where you could see scenes that was like a hidden door that was actually a moving rolling armoire in a sense. It wasn't really a traditional armoire, but it was definitely a bit more dated and vintage in its look. So that was one section that kind of led you from the house into the beginning section. And then we also built another section in the barn across the yard from the house that was built almost like I keep saying a rat maze, but rat is probably not the right word, but a mouse maze where you couldn't tell where the beginning and end started in a sense, so that characters could go and the talent can go around and around in circles and look like it was much larger than it actually was. So that was really fun. And we took the existing architecture of the outside of the barn, in a sense, the walls of the existing architecture in the barn, and then built and matched our patina and our wood and stylized that for the inside section so that you couldn't see the difference between what we built and what already existed there.
So smart. That's so cool. That's
that
incredible.
was figuring out how to do that was a big part of it, because it's like we couldn't find out, like most houses don't have most houses don't have, you know, hidden passageways behind the walls. So we had to figure out, and we were like, all right, we have to find at least a shooting location that has an entrance, like a door there that Holly then built that sliding armoire into. And then, you know, we got to build it somewhere else because there's no way. But yeah, cool. And it looks great. It looks totally continuous. Like when I tell people, like, yeah, we built those out in the barn, they're like, what? Movie magic.
It does look completely continuous. That is movie magic. That is incredible. Another question for Joanna. Where did you find most of the costumes for this film?
So it was a whole bunch of things, like we either purchased, rented it, talent's own. Yeah, really just a whole bunch. Like the blue, all of the pops of blue that we added to the witches and things of that sort were all kind of sourced. But another thing to note was like a lot of the main witches had like a whole red hair thing going on, if you noticed. So that also like played with the costume. I felt like the color of it just added to the whole look. But yeah, all the costumes kind of came from everything. Elizabeth had an amazing mom wardrobe. So
okay, the red overalls, I want to pair so badly. Like I would exist in that forever. It looks so comfortable.
Yeah. When I tell you, I had a vision for Martha, and it was this like neutral, like very just earthy. And then she goes, "Oh, I think I have some earthy." And then she shows me everything, and I'm like, did you just like look at my list? I couldn't even say anything else. So she literally is Martha. But yeah, so a lot of that was definitely. And whenever a talent feels comfortable with wearing something of their own, it always automatically even just makes them deliver the scene in a more comfortable way because, you know, that's theirs and things like that. So, but yeah, kind of got them all over. The ghosts or the silhouettes was like a lot of testing. We had like a camera test for all of that, making sure it looked like proper with the fabrics that we used to achieve that look. But yeah, it's a lot.
You brought up the red hair. What are the red hair motif come from?
That was an Elle thing.
Well, I wanted
the history of witches. I couldn't remember if that was
that's an original thing. I wanted to give that, since in the film witchcraft is passed, like the power is passed genetically. I thought like a lot of traits are linked. So I kind of thought, okay, I'll link it to red hair. And also just to show that, you know, like, even though you don't have to be a redhead to have powers, and not every redhead every redhead has powers. Like you see in the opening in the school, like a girl is getting teased, even though she's not a witch, but just because she has red hair, and you kind of see that, you know, the discrimination that witches face goes much larger than, you know, just this small group of people. It trickles out and affects a lot, much more. And also my sister has red hair, and she's always like, there's never any redheads in anything I watch. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna put a ton of them in my movie. And they're gonna be super powerful.
We had the most gorgeous red hair, so we had to take advantage of that.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Okay, Alexis Burton asked a question. Says, Elizabeth has mentioned that nothing too spooky happened on set. Do any of you wish that something creepy had happened on set?
Besides the bats?
Bats? Tell me more about the bats.
Oh, gosh.
Go ahead, Elle. It's a better story from your perspective, all of you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, we talked about how the house that we filmed in wasn't like a real house. It was like a set house. So there wasn't actually an upstairs. We filmed the upstairs bedroom scenes in another separate house. Because this one, the upstairs was just open so that you could like take the ceilings out if you wanted to film from above. So basically there was like the first floor that we built out and made look all like real, like the world. And then the stairs basically led up to nowhere. It was just like an open attic. And so for the first week of filming, we were filming during the day and it was fine because we weren't there at night. And then second week, when we started doing scenes at night, we discovered that there are like 100 bats living up there, and starting at about 6 p.m. they'd start swooping down. And it was like they were like our assistant director came out, I think it was like lunch or something, and he was like, okay, so there's like a tornado of bats in the living room. And I was like, define tornado of bats. He was like, it's exactly what it sounds like. And I walk in and there's like 20 bats like really going around, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what do we do? So we were trying to like fan them out. And yeah, so we had to like shut down shooting for a whole day and have people come in and like ethically remove them. So we had these people come in and like basically like trapeze up into the banisters, and they removed like 100 bats from the house and set them free, and which was fine. And we were like, okay, great, they're out. But they wanted to get back in. So for the rest,
I was gonna say, did they come back?
Yeah, so for the rest of the shoot, we had bat wranglers on set that would be on call, and we'd have to put netting over all the doors because the bats would try to fly back inside. So every like, I don't know, maybe 5 takes, we'd have to pause because a bat would be in there, and then we'd have to pause and the wrangler would come with a net and like scoop them out of the air and release them back out. But there are takes that, and you guys, Elizabeth, you guys were so good. There's one take where it's like the climax and you guys are like, it's a very serious like shot because Hawthorne's like there with a gun, and you just see like this bat starts flying in the background. And they finished the scene with it, and everyone's like watching. And as soon as I called cut, like everyone just like ducked out, like pieced out. And my editor, he was looking at the dailies and he was like, did you guys do VFX already? And I was like, no. He was like, because there's like bats, like, are those real? I was like, no, those are 100% real. And please don't use those shots because they're not purposeful. But yeah.
It's very witchy.
It was very witchy.
Yeah.
And then like all the bats also, like when we removed them all, they all kind of congregated in this tree outside, and they were like
one tree
screaming
filled with bats.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was like this. They were like chittering in this like tree.
And it was a
like,
really spooky tree as well. Like it was really that was
a spooky tree. Yeah.
Alexis.
Alexis just said that was the best answer ever. So
Right.
yes, that is an incredible answer.
I will never forget. Yeah, that. So I don't know if it's like a haunted set, but
you never lost your cool.
It was like the guys on set that were freaking out and
guys
refused to come into the house. Like people's inner fears would be like, where? Let's go, let's get them. And then like all the guys were screaming, running out of the house.
Yeah, there's one room where like Video Village where you have all the monitors and you can watch what's happening. And it was in this like tiny little room in one part of the house. And they had cleared everyone out because there was a bat in the main room. And so everyone was in the little room, like 20 people had crowded around to like watch the bat through the monitors because the camera was still there. And they were like, oh, we want to see them catch the bat. And they're all like, so everyone is crowded in this, like, it's like a clown car in this little room watching them like get the bat, and the bat somehow flew like directly at the camera, like through an opening in the wall into that tiny room when everyone was in there. And it was like a cartoon, like people were like climbing over each other to get out, and this poor bat like just flying around. It was like,
I've never seen a bunch of dudes run.
Yeah, the high-pitched screams that came from the men were unreal. As a sound designer, I was like, I should have recorded those screams.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
So yeah, so there are bats, tons of bats, hundreds.
So many bats.
That's an incredible story. Wow.
Yeah.
We have another question for you, Elle. So there's a Thelma and Louise motif a little bit going on in this movie. So how did you get the idea to incorporate Thelma and Louise, and are you a big fan of that movie?
So I am fan of that movie. I'm not like a huge diehard fan as the movie makes it seem, but I needed a film for them to like go watch at the theater, and I had watched it recently, and it was one of the first films that I saw where it was just two women just totally going for it, like the entire film, like gas pedal start to finish. And I do think like their journey weirdly was mirroring what I was writing when I was writing the script. And it just felt natural. And I'm also a huge fan of the ending of that movie. Some inspiration there. I won't say too much, but I was the first movie I think growing up where it ended and I was like, wait, what? Like that and Inception like totally like blew my mind. So I like to keep my endings kind of open like that, and it just kind of just fit through. And also it's like I think they in that film were definitely like witches. They were hunted unfairly. Things got out of control. And they ended up flying. So there you go.
Oh, I love that.
I love that.
Jinx.
And then Necromandrea from Twitch, Andrea again from Remorg, just says witches are back, but I'm noticing it's less about persecuting innocent women than women claiming actual power and being punished for that. Would you agree with that? And with your in general and with witches, but like in your film as well?
I think so. I mean, in history, witchcraft, I mean, any woman that had any type of power was labeled as a witch. And it was always seen as a bad thing. Like if you were educated, if you had owned land, if you weren't married, if you were just different, like lived differently than society thought that you should, you're labeled as a witch, and it was a bad thing. But I really like this new movement where being a witch is a positive thing. Like, I don't know, I'm on like witch talk a lot.
Yes, I love witch talk.
And it's become because I mean, our first like doctors and healers were witches, you know, like all of our, even like today, like modern medicine, we learned, and you know, it all came from herbal remedies, like women being gatherers and learning about everything like that, you know, the original witches. And it was, you know, powers for good. And I like that shift is happening. And in our film, it's a lot about, okay, there's this power, and it's like kind of Spider-Man, like where it's like, you can have this power, like, what do you do with it? If you're taught your whole life that it's bad, then you're going to think it's bad, and you're going to be afraid of it and maybe become bad yourself. But if you're told that it is what you make of it and you choose to use it for good, then that's what it can be. And I think that's what we're doing now, which is our good, powerful women.
They are. And I did want to go through, I kind of talk about, you know, that you have the Thelma and Louise ending, not ending, but like kind of that inspiration to your film. And I was also thinking a lot about the characters of Claire and the other witch, and like how they have this friendship. But I did hit a little hint of a queer subtext to it, and I don't know if you actually meant that or that's just my little gay brain wanting to find queer subtext in everything I watch. But I really love that, especially at one point you hear like the braids in their hair are mirrored, which is so cool. So I just like saw that and I was like, I love women. So I just wanted to bring that.
Very purposeful. No one's brought that up yet, so that's good. I'm happy you noticed that. Yes. Yeah, there's definitely something going on there. In an earlier draft of the script, there was a lot more going on. But I kind of like to do things a little bit more delicately. So I think romantic love, friendship love, they all, you know, it's all love at the end of the day, and whatever they want to make of it, maybe if they get beyond the wall in the future. But I think I do agree with you. I'm team Claire and Fiona as a couple.
Me too.
And then you mentioned the wall, which I think I wanted to ask about that very quickly before we kind of have to start wrapping up, because, you know, the build a wall narrative, we are very familiar with that here in the United States of America. But the idea is to keep the wall is to keep people out. But in this movie, the wall is to keep people in, which I thought was a fascinating kind of inversion of this whole like, oh, they're crossing like they're crossing into our country for a better opportunity, it's like, oh no, we can't let them cross to have a better opportunity. So I wanted to hear a little bit more from you, Elle, about that idea and how it is so like how applicable that is right now in our
Yeah, I mean, an earlier draft of the script, it took place in New England and they were going to try to escape into Canada. But then with everything with the wall at the time, I was like, you know what, this makes more sense if we set it in California and they're going south. And I think at that time I was like, why are we building a wall to keep people out? I want to leave personally. I just think like there were so many opinions at the time that I was writing this about the wall. And I was like, okay, like, but what if you look at it from the other side? Like, what if we flip it on its head? How would you feel about the wall then? So it just became kind of like cathartic for me when I was writing to be like, okay, but like, you know, what if people want to get out? Like, why are we building this wall thinking that people are trying to come in? Like, I feel like that's very pompous of us. Yeah.
So we have one final question for you, Elle, and then we'll start wrapping up. But Elle, just one last question about your writing process. What was it like for the writing process for Witch Hunt, and how long did it take you?
It took about a year, but many drafts, I think 3 full rewrites.
Oh, wow.
And this was the first script that I wrote on my own. I've either written with a partner, I've written with partners before, but this was the first one I did alone, which was a hard process because you really have to have confidence in your own writing, which is not the easiest thing, I think, for creatives. We're very hard on ourselves, but I learned a lot, and I basically through rewriting it, I mean, this whole process was just rewriting. It became easier to let go of things and not be too precious. Because I think the act of writing a screenplay, when you finish it, you're like, oh my God, finally I'm done. But through this, that process of, you know, shifting it from, you know, New England to California and setting it in a different world and things like that, I kind of learned that it's okay to go back to the drawing board. Like, you still learn through that process of writing a draft, and it's okay to start over because you're not actually starting over. Like, you gained a lot from writing that. So yeah, I just learned to love rewriting.
Embrace it.
Yeah, because you know what, it can only get, you know, it's not like you're throwing away what you had before. You can always go back to that.
Yeah.
Where do you write? Do you write in one place, or do you write? I know I'm not supposed to be asking questions, but I'm so curious.
No, please.
I write best sitting like cross-legged on my bed at like 11 p.m.
Love that.
When I'm supposed to have been writing all day, but I've done like chores to procrastinate, and then it hits 11 p.m. and I'm like I panic, and then I like write until 4 a.m.
Wow, we are the same person.
I have to like guilt myself into writing. I have to feel really panicked. So, and I have to be really uncomfortable, or otherwise I'll fall asleep. So it's like me, like with no back support, like on my bed, like at 11 p.m. with like all the lights on, like totally ringing so I don't fall asleep, and then like speed reading.
That's awesome.
Incredible.
I'm not the type of person that can like get up and be like, I'm going to write 10 pages before lunch. It's like I get up and I like stress out all day, and then I write like 50 pages during the night. So
love it.
I don't know if that's the healthiest way to write, but that's what works for me.
Okay, I love that so much. Thank you. That's wonderful for me.
That makes me feel better about my writing too.
Yeah, my house is really clean when I write, because I procrastinate by like cleaning everything first.
I get that. That procrastination thing, I do it too with learning lines, and I love that middle of the bed with the thing. I think I do something really similar. That makes a lot of sense to me creatively, and I think it's helpful for people wanting to pursue a creative path, that it's not so cut and dry. The process itself is creative.
Yeah, it's and it's right. Just, everyone is different, and like I think I went to this screenwriting panel once, and it was like 4 different screenwriters, and this was before I considered myself a screenwriter, even though at the time I should have, you know, just like embrace it. And every one of them had a totally different process.
Yeah,
in terms of writing, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, okay, so however I want to do it is just that's right. It's not wrong. Like, there's no wrong way to do it.
I love that.
And that was
I love that. That's helpful.
So we only have a few minutes left, so we're going to start wrapping up. You guys, thank you so much for joining me
Thank
to
you.
chat about Witch Hunt.
Goodness.
But I want to go around real quick and just have everyone plug socials and just what they're working on, so everyone knows where to follow them. So Joanna, can we start with you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm very active there with my work, at Gosh Joanna, and working on a couple projects, a couple TV shows till the end of the year, and that's pretty much it.
Well done.
Awesome. Holly, what about you?
You can follow me on Instagram as well at Trotta, and I do post a lot of my work up there as well. And I'm currently working on a couple music videos and reading a couple scripts.
Cool. Elizabeth, what about you?
Oh, Elizabeth Mitchell official. I'm not on there very often, but I do read it, and I do like being there. I do, and I'm not very active or particularly good at it, but there I am. And
You are so good at it. What are you talking about?
And I did a little Outer Banks playing a disreputable character because I had to balance Martha. And then I did a little First Kill playing a 500-year-old vampire, which is very exciting. And
I'm
then
so excited for that. I'm so excited for
I
that.
am too, because I just got to loop it and I got to see it. And I got so excited when I left. I can't even begin to tell you. I texted all my family. I was like, "Hi guys, you were so beautiful and amazing." But you know, once a mom, always a mom. Little movies here and there, but listen, I'm loving life and so excited about this. But I want to hear what Elle's doing or where I can find her.
Instagram at Elle Callahan. And I'm working on a bunch of stuff. Unfortunately, I can't talk about any of them because
oh my gosh, but people are talking about you. Every time I have an interview, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I love her. I sent her scripts. Has she gotten the script?" I'm like, "You're gonna have to ask her."
But I have a really cool script that I just finished that I really liked. That's like a monster movie. It's also like a period piece because I owe my mom a period piece movie because she loves movies when people wear hats. So I do that. And then, yeah. So you know. But it will be scary though, because yeah, she's like, "Can you just not do a scary one?" And I'm like, "No, but I'll give you some hats. I can do some hats." So,
Hat horror, my new favorite subgenre.
And then I'm writing for some franchises that I really like, and we'll see. New stuff will come out. Directors, it takes a while for our stuff to it's more like long stuff, unfortunately, but.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again so much for joining us, and everyone watching, thank you for watching. Make sure to follow Dread Central across all the socials, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you guys again so much. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
I thought that I could keep you safe, and I can't.
I'm with the federal branch of the BWI, the Bureau of
Witchcraft Investigations. I'm familiar.
I've been dispatched to follow up on a report of suspicious activity. May I come in?
Detective, I assure you, there are no witches here.
We need to stop. We can't be risking our lives for them.
These women are born with their powers. They don't have a choice.
Have you ever made anything fly?
How am I supposed to control something that I'm not even allowed to practice?
I thought that I could keep you safe, and I can't.
Keep quiet. There's nothing in that thing that shouldn't be there, is there?
No.
I hate liars.
Has it really come to this?
You want to try?